All right, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome to another video about the 2020 presidential election, where we're going to be talking about the swing state of Michigan. This is another swing state analysis, and if you like the content, likes, comments, subscriptions always help, and I greatly appreciate them. Uh, and Michigan, this was probably the big surprise of 2016 was that Trump actually won Michigan. I think most people thought, okay, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, maybe they're in play, but Michigan was polling, I think, at like Clinton plus 6 or 7 for most of the time, and the average was just not looking good for Donald Trump. And then he wins it by 12,000 votes on election day out of, I think it was close to like 6 million. It was it was in that range, and it was 6 or 7 million. I forget exactly the total number of votes, but it was a very narrow win. Let's not make two ways about it. And part of that had to do with how well Trump did in rural Michigan, as well as some of these union towns and places like Macomb County, which I was watching some election night coverage where they were talking about how Macomb County was, the home of the Reagan Democrat, and will they be Trump Democrats? So it turns out on election day, yeah, they kind of were. And we have to remember there's two parts of Michigan, but it's not necessarily there's Detroit, and then there's the rest of the state. Or you could say there's the Upper Peninsula and then the Lower Peninsula. And there are other distinctions. You say rural versus urban. I mean, the Detroit area is pretty much urban, and everything else is pretty rural, except for Flint, Marquette. Yeah, it's Marquette, and there's a few other places. Ann Arbor, for example. But when you actually look into it, where is it going to matter? Well, it's going to matter in some of these counties over here, and it's going to matter in the Detroit suburbs. And I wish YAPMS had a 2012 presidential county map, but they don't quite yet, because I would love to bring up the comparison between 2012 and 2016. And 2012 was just a massive. I mean, Obama won it pretty comfortably. Same thing with both Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. Wisconsin is probably the most dramatic with all the counties that did flip. Michigan, though, was also pretty dramatic. There's a lot of counties that are red on this map that are actually blue in 2012. And that's the thing. Michigan's voters, we talked about this when we talked about Iowa, but the majority of Michigan voters, it's not nearly as white as Iowa was, but they're very working class, especially now that Detroit has kind of fallen off the face of the earth in terms of desirability to live in for a lot of people. I mean, the auto market collapse really hurt Detroit significantly. And the reality is that the Democratic policies of cash for clunkers didn't help Detroit at all, because everybody realized gas is increasing in price, and they, instead of getting a new Ford Taurus or a Chevy Impala or a new Dodge pickup truck, though a lot of people did get pickup trucks because pickup trucks are the most popular car in America, because of course they are. But instead of getting, for the most part, instead of getting gas guzzlers, a lot of these people who traded in cars in this Cash for Clunkers program were getting Japanese Econo boxes. These little small, extremely fuel efficient cars, like Priuses and Toyota RAVs and or Honda RAVs, sorry, and a bunch of other stuff. And that meant that Detroit really wasn't going to produce as much in terms of the auto market because people weren't buying their cars. And this led to continued economic troubles from Detroit and to a lesser extent the rest of Michigan, but still to an extent. Of course, then the Flint water crisis happened where it turns out that all the chemicals in the pipes were destroying the quality of the drinking water, and people had to drink bottled water for years, and I think they still have problems. And now we're talking about protests in Michigan over the lockdown orders from the COVID pandemic. And in my opinion, this does not look very good on Governor Whitmer, who I think the positive thing I can say is she is trying to look out for the safety of the people of Michigan. The problem is the people of Michigan are like, I don't want you telling me how to look after my safety. I want to be able to make these decisions on my own. And I'm going to. That's basically what the people of Michigan are saying. They're saying, we're sick and tired of this lockdown. Let us out. If we get sick, so be it. We're just sick and tired of this. And Governor Whitmer is saying, but it's for your own good. And this is where, I do side with the protesters in Michigan who are saying we want an end to the lockdown. I also side with most protesters who want an end to the lockdown because most of them are nonviolent. There is one case where I think a guy stepped over the line, and that was in Kentucky, where a guy hung in effigy or hanged in effigy of Governor Beshear, and that kind of made news in this area. But and I don't support that action. I think he went too far. I think he deserved any consequences that he'd get for that, short of actually physical harm to him. But no, I sympathize with people wanting an end to the lockdown, and I agree with them. If I get sick, so be it. But I'm tired of the lockdown. I'm done with this lockdown, and I don't think it's going to reflect well on Whitmer, and I'm skeptical that she's I'm skeptical she'll win re-election in 2022, and it could have ramifications into November where people are so sick of the lockdown that they're going to vote against the party that instituted one of the stricter lockdowns in the nation. And I could honestly see Michigan voting for Trump again because of the harshness of the lockdown and the governor's response to the protests. We'll talk about Minnesota and the Minneapolis riots, but I want things to cool down a little bit because we're going to be talking about them next time I do a swing state analysis. I just want things to cool down a little bit before I talk about them. That way people have a rational response to them, and it's not just a flame war in the comments, and that we can all have a sober look at what's going on in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hopefully there is a non-violent resolution, but I think a lot of people have already jumped the shark on that and are going crazy. To anyone who is not involved, and to anyone who has family in that area, I wish them all safe, and hopefully they're not caught up in all of that, and hopefully as many people make it out safe, alive, and uninjured as possible, and minimal damage is done. But mostly I want people to be safe. So, and anybody watching from Minneapolis, please be safe. Okay. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time. Take it easy. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.